But we are now live, and you should be able to see, if you see the chat button. Can you see that?
I see a chat comment. I don't see a chat button.
So Elia Cuomo.
Yep.
Elia.
So let's spend a few minutes just kind of saying hi to people, and then I'll trigger the countdown video in a couple minutes. We didn't practice. We didn't talk through anything. But, you know, I wish I would be a bit more professional communicator, so that wouldn't be a problem, but we'll just
I wish we were a little more tech-savvy. That's what I wish.
We were better in every respect.
Oh
yep.
But,
yeah. It's not getting any better.
Yeah, I love it. This is us. This is us.
Yeah.
No, that name's already been taken.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Sherry. That's my cousin Sherry.
Yeah.
We got married a week before.
It's crazy.
You'll need to unlock.
No, my phone's not allowed to talk. All right, that's it.
Nice. Yes, to let some people. Come on.
Oh my gosh, from Scotland. That's pretty cool. Tell us where you are in Scotland. The first year of our married life, we spent in Aberdeen. We lived in a little dorm room right across from a chapel that was built in 1493, I think.
It was amazing.
That was very cool.
Long time ago.
Oh my gosh, and Cornwall.
Oh, wow.
We have, I did, I don't think you did. I surfed in Cornwall.
I know I should have, but I didn't. That was
yeah.
such a beautiful spot.
Nancy's going surfing today. Her surfboard is on the car. As soon as we're done here, she's off to the ocean.
I am.
Yeah,
rock.
Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah.
How long have you been?
Oh, and God.
Oh, you know, a few years, but I still look like a beginner. Like
You
I
look
learned last
fabulous
week.
when you're surfing.
It's not true. I just still haven't got the pop up. It's anyway, but it's fun. I
So
love
Tim, Kara lives in Glasgow. Do you know what the resident of Glasgow is called?
Glaswegian.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah,
Sorry.
that's all right. Is
I
your name Tim?
I didn't hear you say it, but you're just speaking in.
When I was going to seminary.
Good.
Oh.
What was your question for
Sorry.
Nancy?
My question is, were you that person in school? Question, the Hermione Granger, right? Maybe that.
No,
reference.
actually not at all. I just always for recess and field trips.
But you were class community, so
I was.
yeah,
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So many years ago.
Oh my gosh, somebody from Uganda in Africa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Wow. From the land of 10,000 and more Great Lakes. So that's got to be Minnesota.
I would say.
Oh gosh, from Hungry Horse, Montana.
We were just in Wyoming.
We were in Wyoming and we were going to celebrate our 40th anniversary at
the Mangy Moose.
The Mangy Moose. And for some reason, our daughter did not think that was the appropriate place to celebrate our 40th anniversary.
That's all right.
So we shifted
That's
to another restaurant.
Yeah, different one.
Yeah. Yeah. You're touching me now. Is that a signal to not talk?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Oh man.
That would be
Yep. Oh, this is so much fun. Hi from Sacramento, Orlando, Florida.
Lewisburg, Wisconsin, Chicago. Fun fact about Chicago: Chicago was called the Windy City not because of the actual wind. It's like 65th in the country for wind. It's from the politicians. At least that's what I read. But especially with it being the 65th in the country for amount of wind.
That's amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We're actually headed to Chicago, and for anybody who lives around Chicago, I'm going to be at a church called Christ Church in Oak Brook this Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about, they actually asked me, Pam Howell, who's a good friend that may be on here at some point, asked me to talk about the Fellowship of the Withered Hand. So that's I want to talk about this coming up Sunday at Christ Church in Oak Brook. So if you're around, I'll see you there.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I'll be back out there. And Tim, I think you're coming out too in September.
Yep, that's right. I'm excited about that.
Oh my gosh, that's so much fun. Oh, Carol Ford, Rockford, Illinois. Tim was in Rockford, Illinois quite recently on a
Yeah.
field trip with the family, and you can tell us
Was.
what you ate.
Yeah, we went to Stockholm Inn and got the Swedish pancakes, and it was delightful. You know, they have like a buffet there, which I didn't realize. And
Well, they never used to have a buffet.
Yeah.
Wow.
New.
yeah.
Gosh,
So
San Fernando Valley, I grew up in Whittier, Visalia. I used to pheasant hunt up there with my dad.
Mm,
It's amazing.
yeah. Scott
Scott
Harrison.
Harrison.
Hey, Scott. Love you.
Great.
Praying for you. Yeah.
Great to see you. So are the kids back in school, Tim? Oh, no, not yet.
Nope, not yet. We've got one of our kids in like summer camp, and then our daughter is home hanging out. So yeah, but we're back. We took our camper trailer out, for those of you who are catching up, out on the road. We went camping 16 days, 7 campsites, but it's this old camper trailer, so Chicago, and it was good.
Wow. Yep. Somebody else on there, Church of the Resurrection. And I think I'm going to be out there sometime after the first of the year. So that will be fun. And then somebody else from Ripon, California, where our good friend Frank Vanderswan, Frank and I used to work together at Menlo. I just talked to Frank yesterday. Tim, you know Frank.
Oh, yeah.
And he has moved out to Ripon, super involved in a church out there. He's
such a great guy.
In the dictionary, where if you look up the word pastor, you see Frank Vanderswan's picture next to it. He's just like the poster example of somebody who's an amazing giver of pastoral ministry and care.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to hit our little countdown timer, and then we'll kind of start. So let's see how this works. John and Nancy, we'll get started here in just a minute.
Well, it's all downhill from here.
Oh my gosh, Tim.
Just watching those
Wow.
clips and
Oh.
reading those words,
Yeah.
and then reading comments from all of you who are, part of the Fellowship of the Withered Hand. 4 months without drinking today. Gosh, way to go.
That's awesome.
Yep, just with you all the way. I was talking about Jimmy yesterday, whose brother Eddie was part of this community and passed away, and Jimmy just lost his brother-in-law Brian this last week, and just being with each other. And then Becky was on. I think we get to go to the wedding of your daughter.
Yeah, we do.
And
we just got invited.
Yep, the next few weeks. So people getting married, people being born, people dying, people struggling for life and battling addiction, and then Tim, just the beauty and the artistry of those images and those
just
words,
devotional.
is transcendent and a reminder of kind of what Genesis is about, that there is a deeper reality that the earth causes us to be aware of and moves us so deeply. So thank you.
Yeah,
Keith
thank
Pennings,
you.
You're my best friend. Thank you. That was awesome. I love. Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that was.
I'm so excited chance to sit down with you. I know everyone's excited, looking forward to hearing from you, to just being together live. John, I was saying, the God of the Bible is the God of new beginnings. So take a deep breath. Let go of yesterday because it's gone, dead. Bye-bye. I was here. Whose voice do I hear whenever you say that? I'll think of it later. But I love that intro. I remember the first time that you said that intro on the first episode, which we can talk about if you want. But man, I actually just laughed out loud because it was so refreshing and helpful. Just, it's gone. Let it go. I think we all have yesterdays that we are very happy to say.
I think somebody wrote in the chat that they forgot to let go of yesterday.
That's brilliant. Don't we all?
It's a problem. Yeah. Yep. Forgetting what is behind.
Yeah. Yeah. It just, what a refreshing way, for me at least, to start every morning. And I know for a lot of people who watch it or throughout the day, listen to the episodes. Just so good. So thank you. Thanks, John. And thanks, Nancy. Your guest video talking about spiritual formation in work was a really well-received one. And I'm sure folks will put in some questions about that, but thank you. And just a quick question to kind of get us started, you, John, and give us just a little insight to putting together this content. What got you excited about this series, and just tell us a little bit about that.
So that initial quote is a significant part of that journey. I love studying this. What I love and what I'm so grateful to get to do with all of you is to try to learn and read and think and talk with people about the stuff of life, and then figure out a way to communicate that can touch folks' minds and hearts. And Genesis is unique in that way, to be able to read what was going on in the great conversation in the world of the ancient Near East, and how did Genesis fit in there, was very stimulating. But then I would find myself just preoccupied with thoughts about the Babylonian and Mesopotamian and Egyptian creation myths, and the use of imagery, and the role of chaos, and how they viewed the gods. And I just got completely stuck, because I would start recording stuff. It's like, this is not working at all. And it was real abstract. And actually, both you, Nancy, and you, Tim, were super helpful, because it can be very difficult and distressing and depressing and spiritually hard. And then to remember, actually, at the core of what we're doing here is trying to help each other find a way to connect with God today, and to walk with him through life today. So to make sure that I was structuring each one of the talks around getting to that point. How do I live with a sense of blessing today? How do I rest in the Sabbath today? How do I do good work today? How do I love another person today? How can I be curious about the animals today? To be brought back, like, that's home. So that's really where the intro on every day kind of flowed out of my own deep wrestling with a sense of inadequacy and failure, and then kind of finding, oh yeah, that's home base. So it was a very, very meaningful series to me. I love doing it. Before I forget, the one other thing I'll mention, because somebody asked about this, I misstated it earlier on. This Sunday, July 9th, I actually will be preaching, but here in California at the Cathedral of Faith. Our really good friend Ken Foreman is pastor there, so I'll be here. We'll be in Chicago, and I'll be preaching at Christ Church the following week, July 16th. Somebody saw that on the church's website, and basically, if you ever see anything online that's different than what I say, the other source is probably more accurate, and that's the case here.
I love that. That's great. You know, one of the things that's just kind of adventurous about what we do is that we kind of just put it together a couple weeks before we jump in. And so it is a learning, it's a learning experience for all of us. And I think that intro, you know, figuring out the centuries was such a great learning experience for us too, just being reminded of what is this community all about and what are we trying to do with these videos. And it really is helping ourselves time and then helping anybody else as much as we can through just those recalibrating, recentering thoughts and things you can put into practice each day that can really, really help. I was curious just to kind of, as we're reviewing the series, walking through these first 3 chapters of Genesis, and at any time, Nancy, John, interrupt me if you want to address something in the comments. That is
So
definitely
fun.
top priority. But my question for both of you, Nancy, maybe we could start with you, is just, you know, what part of these first 3 chapters most difficult to grapple with? And what part do you find to be the most hopeful or find the most hope in?
Yeah, I was so excited when John decided to do this series because I think there's so much richness in Genesis that's easy to overlook. I'm going to merge those 2 questions together. And it's actually something John and I talked about just a couple of days ago. He was saying that the rhythms really throughout Genesis are, you're going to have to help me with the words, but the rhythm of something goes wrong and there's a spiral downward. And then eventually there's hope. And that gets repeated over and over again, from the fall to Cain and Abel, to Babel, to Abraham, to the flood. And I think for so many of us, myself included, in the American church, the idea of following Jesus, unconsciously what we're looking for is just on-ramps of hope all the time. And I think the reminder that from the very beginning, it's been breaks from God, downward spirals, and then just glimpses of hope, just enough to keep us moving forward, has helped recalibrate me in what my unconscious expectations are for my life. That what I want so badly is for the good parts of life to predominate and the hard parts to cede into the background. And I don't think that's the Bible's story. And then I think something else, I'm reading a little book right now by Mary Oliver called Devotions. It's just a book of her poetry. And she has this beautiful passage in here about fireflies. And honestly, when I lived in the Midwest for those 9 winters we lived there, fireflies is about the only thing I miss. Thunderstorms and fireflies. That's about it. And
fireflies were there in the summer, so there actually was a non-winter season.
Yes, full of bugs and humidity and rain. Yes, there was. But she writes about the magic of fireflies and how they float and turn among the branches of the oaks and the swamp azaleas looking for each other. Who doesn't? Oh, blessings on the intimacy inside fruition. And then this part, be it foxes or fireflies or dampness inside the petals of 1,000 flowers. Though Eden is lost, its loveliness remains in the heart and the imagination. And I think the loveliness of Eden, this series has helped me remember that, gosh, we were created for the loveliness of Eden. That's in our DNA. And yet we live in a broken world where it's full of the downward spiral. And so I have to find a way to live in between those two, wanting the one so much more than I want the other. But I have to find God, and I think he lives in the middle. So for me, this series has been great. And then the phrase John used a couple of weeks ago, don't believe anything bad about God. I screenshotted that title on my phone of just when you have to live in between those two, it's sort of like, okay, if this is you, God, in the loveliness of Eden, why don't you take care of this hard part of my life more often? And just that reminder that if it's
Which
from
is
God,
a Dallas Willard
it's
quote,
good.
just
Yep.
to, just to
Yeah.
make sure.
That's true.
That's pretty much everything I say is. So
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's great, Nancy. I agree with you totally. I think this series was just so helpful. I mean, the everyday weekday rhythm of coming back to those thoughts and that reality. And John, I think you do that so well, is holding, I mean, both of those tensions, both in your own life experience and what you're going through today, but also just in the reality of that's all of our life experience, is that it's that combination. How would you answer, John? Just about those three factors, all those episodes you did. And this one is personally tough for me, or which one brought you the most help?
yeah, I think the part that I found myself thinking about a lot now and wondering about is what was people's experience like in the ancient world that they're communicating in the Bible, and how does that connect with mine? I can sometimes think of people's experience with God, like a movie with special effects, and then to think here, like, God doesn't have a body. So when it talks about they heard God walking in the cool of the day, what exactly was going on? What did they experience? I'd not thought deeply before about how, like, when the serpent shows up, and again, it's not a talking snake, so it's using a lot of imagery and symbol, but there's already a problem. When the man and the woman are first born, they are first created, they haven't sinned yet, but something's already wrong in the universe. There is already a power greater than us that is pulling us away. And so just trying to figure out what's going on in my life that is significant and where there is something sacred happening that I just miss all the time, where anybody who's watching us, your experience of life could be part of Scripture. We are hearing in some ways from God, even if we don't know it. How often do I miss it? Where do I miss it? Just that little word blessed. And I was thinking, for some reason, I don't understand why, I don't understand what it is, but when we do these moments and you all write in, it is deeply, deeply meaningful to the heart. And there's a deep sense of blessing in it. But I miss that most of the time and most of the day. So it's that question, how do I learn how to not miss it when I'm walking through life?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, again, just the cadence of the everyday. I think that I just want to say thank you to everybody that does chime in the comments, because we do read those every day. And actually, I look forward to it. I just look forward to connected with everybody, because I feel, even though I'm putting out, the videos with a few other folks, like, I feel just like the first receiver of the goodness, basically. And so thank you. And thanks for chiming in now. There's one thing I'd love to just share with the community is we are going to send you a survey, something we want to start doing at the end of.
And for Christian pastors to help with a holistic gospel movement in the 11 counties and 256 cities of the Bay Area. And we have 3 streams we work through: Unify, Amplify, Multiply. Unify, we have pastors networks where prayer, encouragement, and relationship is at the core, moving towards collaborative impact for the city. And right now, among the Protestant evangelical churches in our area, we have 44% of the churches in those networks. And that's been a huge turning point. And actually, Steve Clifford's on here this morning. And Steve's pastoral network really was the vision behind that part of our work. We also work bringing nonprofits together with churches to help systemic approaches to foster care, homelessness, and education. We work with church planting and evangelism and faith and work in the Bay Area. And I think a point of hope, I just met yesterday, in fact, Steve Clifford, I'm going to email you either today or Monday. I met with a young pastor who just came into the area to start a church, to help with a church in Fremont. He's incredibly bright. He's a young Asian pastor in a predominantly Asian community, and he's inherited a church of 35 people post-COVID. And this guy probably could go anywhere, but he feels really called to this church. And Steve, right now, he just doesn't have a good mentor. And I thought it'd be great if you could just even meet with him once or twice and encourage him. But he's living in that tension between, I want to see this church grow. And yet where I have to start is these are the people God has given me. And there's 35 of them. And I love that passage in the Old Testament where God says, do not despise the day of small things. And again, I think in our Western culture, Christianity, bigger is better. The megachurch movement had a, not that it was all bad, but the impact it had on pastors of smaller churches feeling less than. And to sit with this young man and encourage him and have a conversation with him, it makes me feel really hopeful for the reshaping of the church post-COVID back to, I think, what God always intended the church to be. Yeah.
No, I think that's wonderful. And I know we have a lot of pastors that tune in. And one of the things that we do intentionally, just for everyone who's watching, is we don't send out episodes on the weekends. And a big part of that is because we want to encourage people to attend a local church community, and also just so that John can have a break every day, 7 days a week would be quite a lot. But we, love the local church, have a heart for it. We released a series, which many of you, which is Rediscover Leadership. And so if you're in pastoral ministry or in leadership, and that on our website, becomenew.com/leaders. It's a great resource. But thanks, Nancy. We love you.
Thank you.
I'm grateful for you. Anything you want?
Susan from Safeway. I haven't met you yet. And every time I go into Safeway, I keep looking for you and haven't found you yet. So I'm going to keep looking.
Oh, Susie from Safeway. Nice.
Love that.
Love it. John, we got not that many questions on this series, just a few, but there was one that we wanted to talk ahead and read it for everybody so they have the context, and then you can dive in on it. But this is what they said. A question that occurred to me as John spoke out about why Genesis prevails was the statement regarding the covenant that God asks nothing in return. While I totally understand this point of view, I also wondered if he could address the sacrificial system in Israel's relationship with God. One of the points of contact is that sacrificial system, and I realize that takes us beyond Genesis. But since John brought it up, I wondered if he could wrap up this series.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, it's such a rich question. And it ties real deeply into the nature of Genesis. When I was a kid, I often didn't understand that there was a context to the writing of Scripture, and would just think of the Old Testament as like this blueprint dropped down from heaven where God is saying, this is how I did it, what I did, instead of realizing it was part of a great conversation that's always gone on in the world. What does it mean to be human? Is there a sense of transcendence? Is there meaning? Is there anything out there? And that relates to the sacrificial system that I used to think, the idea of sacrificing animals was invented in the Bible, and it always seemed kind of strange to me. And it wasn't until months later that I realized, no, people have offered sacrifices to God or the gods in the ancient world pretty much universally. Interestingly, even in Genesis, we see with Cain and Abel, they're offering sacrifices to God. And that, of course, was way before the Pentateuch was written, before Israel existed. There is something inside the consciousness, the minds and hearts of people early on that led them to offer sacrifices. That can look strange to us. Of course, they were stupid and they didn't know any better, and we're really smart. But there were dynamics going on. They had this sense that there was another world beyond our world. And they had this strange sense that there was a mystery that somehow our being able to live involves death. That happens with crops, that happens with animals, and this strange sense that we need help and we should ask for help. And all of that's part of what was involved in sacrifices. There's a prof at Yale, I wish I could remember his name, I can't right now off the top of my head, but he said a really important dynamic to understand and remember in the ancient world is, we think when you sacrifice something, it's lost to you. But in the ancient world, they thought of it not as being lost, but being transferred. to the realm of the invisible or to the realm of the divine. So when we think about the sacrifice of animals, in a lot of ways, it was almost more like going to a restaurant. They would go to a temple, sacrifice would be animals, but then that food would be eaten by the people who were offering the sacrifices, and some would be available to the priests. So what God does is he takes this system that's just a universal part of human reflex and praxis and says, now I'm going to shift it to teach you about me. And so eventually he gets to the place where he says, like in Psalm 51, the sacrifice of God is a contrite heart, a humble spirit. We talked in this series about what John Walton called the great symbiosis, that in the ancient world, in the ancient Near East generally, people thought that human beings were created because the gods needed food, but they got tired of farming. So people's job was to bring food to the gods and give it to them. And then the God's job was to create fertility and safety so that people could provide them with food. So it was this symbiotic, just transactional. And then God comes and says, if I was hungry, do you think I would tell you that there is one great God and he doesn't need oxen and he doesn't need sheep, but that actually self-giving love, a God who sacrifices himself, his time, to create this beautiful world and then shares it with us, is transferring his goodness into our realm so that we can transfer our lives into his realm. It's at the core of who God is. And that theme, I wish I had the right words for it, but the notion that what is good, what is beautiful, what is blessed, what is love, what is self-giving and self-offering is rooted in the nature of God. And that's why we respond to good and beauty the way that we do, because there is a Trinitarian fellowship of sacrificing, self-giving love that is at the core of everything that will one day prevail. And even the way that God takes the sacrificial system of the ancient world and one step at a time teaches people there are not many gods and they are not needy. There is one God and he is great and he is good, and that he gives of himself so that we can learn to give of ourselves is a beautiful, beautiful thing. We see it ultimately expressed by Jesus in the cross. And so that the way that God uses and transformed the sacrificial system, I think, is one of the most beautiful parts of Scripture.
They don't put that on flannel graph in Sunday school, do they?
No, they do not.
Don't knock.
No, I loved flannel graph.
Yeah.
It's just so much of, it's just going from childlike faith to a more adult understanding. That is so helpful.
There's
I
so
don't
much
think I would have
richness.
been ready for that on flannel graph.
No, and that's where if we don't understand that, then you feel like, well, God seems kind of strange, or people
arbitrary.
think he was different in the Old Testament than he is now. He was more punitive or more severe, and he was not. He's just guiding the human race one step at a time, and
from
so
where they really are.
Yeah, and from where we are right now, like
Exactly.
we haven't arrived yet. What we shall be, eye hath not seen and ear hath not heard.
Yep.
I love that. I loved how, I mean, even in yesterday's episode, ending on hope, you know, that God doesn't abandon when we struggle, when we make the decisions that we make, but he moves immediately into a state of creative, you know, way making, you know, okay, how can we make a new thing? How can we work with this? And I'm going to have to go back and listen to what you just said, John, again, which is also the case many times, as I know is with others, that I have to watch and listen like 2 or 3 times, sometimes to grasp all the concepts, but really also just because I've talked about this with the team that meets to pray on the weekdays, is that there is kind of this, at least I talk with, feel this, this real spiritual power that comes through what you're doing. And so I just want to say thank you, and let's keep doing it, which leads me to the next question, which is what's coming up next? I know that you're excited about this next series that we're going to jump into in a couple weeks, but then we'll dive in. Do you want to share with folks what's getting you excited about that and what that's all about?
I do. It's always so hard to let go of what was, because there's so much more in it. Like just to name it, I'll often think about the sessions I never taught. And one of them, I was going to do one on the loneliest job in the world. there's something so poignant to me at the end of the 3 chapters where it talks about, in order to keep people out of Eden and away from the tree of life, God appoints a cherubim with flashing sword to guard the way so that people can't get into Eden. And I was going to call it the loneliest job in the world. And to think of the task of that being. And what does that mean? Why does that say that? What is it that we're forbidden to enter into? So there's so much more richness there, but I'm thrilled about this. In the field of positive psychology, there's been a lot of work over the last couple of years around character formation. And it's kind of resulted in a list of 24 character strengths. And they're each one of them beautiful. They're deeply, deeply a part of scripture. They're deeply a part of story. You can't watch a movie without finding somebody's character moving in the right direction or moving in the wrong direction. It's part of why story is so important. As a deep part of, there's a philosopher named Christian Miller that's doing a lot of writing about that. Tim, we've just been in touch with him, a psychologist in the UK, Roger Bretherton, that we're also hoping to talk to. And the idea of this series will be not just to abstractly study these concepts, but to actually identify what are your signature character strengths? What are the things where when you practice spirituality or humor or humility or creativity or curiosity or leadership, you just feel deeply, deeply alive? And how do you embed that more into your life? Virtue in action. So that's where we're headed next. And I just love to bring together the best thought of scripture and spiritual formation and people that work in the social sciences and philosophy. I think it's going to be really, really rich.
Love it. And then a question on that is 2 questions. Will there just be 24 episodes, or what do you think on that? There's 24 character strengths. Are we going to expand it? Putting you on the
I think it's going to have to go at least a little bit more than 24, because I'd like to do one episode on each one of them because they're so, so rich. But then also to spend some time talking about how do you identify yours. There's a survey that folks can take if they want to. How do we put this stuff into practice in our lives? How do we respond to it? How do we see and name strengths in each other? So I expect there'll be a few more than 24.
Yes. Awesome. That's great. Yeah. Just on that same one thing, just to let you know, is that in this 2-week break, we're not going to leave you with nothing. We're actually working up a couple playlists that we'll send out via email and will be on our website that include kind of our most fundamental episodes. So if you want to go back and watch some of the episodes that we think really capture the heart of what Become New is and what we're all about, we're going to provide that playlist. And then also just sort of the best of, which will be some of our internal picks of ones that we kind of just find to be our favorite. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is we're also going to release a new tab on our webpage where you could go back and opt into previous series and get those daily emails from that previous series. So if you just came in the beginning at the end here and you want to go back and start it again from the beginning, you could go to that page and re-opt in to some of those previous series. So those are coming out Monday, just to let you know, things to look ahead to. Nancy.
Is it possible to put the link to that 24 character assessment trait in that so people can take it ahead of time and start thinking about it? And then can you send a link? The beginning video that you did every week for this series is spectacular. But this morning, the one before that, I have no words. And I hate to see it lost. Can you put a link for all of us to that? I feel like I would watch that on the weekends, and that would be my devotional.
Yeah, I'll make sure that's retained on this video. So it will be that intro for this video. But yeah, you know what we could do, Nancy, is this Monday, we'll send out the links for the playlists and the groups. And the next Monday, how about we send out the survey for the 24 character strengths?
And can you link to just the video so I don't have to go back to this to watch the video, but I have my own link to the video and everybody that watches this?
Nancy, I'll do it. It sounds great.
I think it's that good. I think it's that good. It was visually so compelling.
Friends,
Also,
you just saw a picture into our strategic process. Nancy saying, "Can you do this?" And I go, "Yeah, I think we could do that."
saying this in front of everybody online. Like, what are you going to say? No.
Yeah.
Also, we just got to give a heads up. The survey is terrific. You can take it for free. The folks that do it will follow up with an offer of a booklet that goes more deeply into your stuff that costs money. So just to let people know,
That's a good reminder.
you can get that if you want to, but that's not from us. We don't get any money from that. We're not
Obligating.
Yeah, we're not encouraging or suggesting that you do something that will send money someplace else. It's just kind of the way that the deal works. Free survey. I think you find out your top 5 strengths for free when they write back, but a booklet beyond that would cost money. So
I think any survey you ever do nowadays comes with all these continual inundations of follow-up emails.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing I really hope that we can avoid in general. Like we only want to send things out that people want. We want to make sure our communication is on purpose and just has, I like to say, has all killer, no filler, right? So we'll try to keep it there. Yeah, because this is really just, I mean, it's a passion project, essentially, is what it is. And that's all. So love it. Super excited about the future. We are talking about some more things coming up later this year that I'm not going to let you know now, but just want to at least whet your appetite and say, we're definitely paying attention to the comments, the email, the texts, and we will keep on we'll keep on planning and thinking about how we can facilitate and care for it. I'll often talk about approaching this community like gardening. You know, to me, it seems like, okay, this is God's like putting plants basically in the garden. How do we take care of it? How do we tend it? And just do it one day at a time, right? So we love you. We're grateful for you. Have any closing thoughts as we wrap up our time together, John and Nancy?
I do. One of the words in the Genesis account that I just love is the word bless. And Dallas would often talk about how blessing is a spiritual reality. It's not physical, but it is a form of energy. It comes from the will. To bless is to seek, will the good of the other in the presence of God. And I love that the first time we see it in Genesis, God is blessing the fish. And science cannot tell us if anything is good or not. It can just say this is or it isn't. If you ask a scientist, is the cosmos a good thing? There's no scientific journal that does a peer-reviewed study of that, but Genesis tells us that. It is a blessed thing to be alive. And so I just want to take this moment to bless you. Whoever you are watching this, in your 4th month without drinking, about to get married, suffering because you have a brother or a brother-in-law or a parent or a spouse who just died, struggling because you're facing difficulties or challenges or pain, which we do in our own life and are deeply aware of. In the midst of all of this, the word to you now is blessed, 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 blessed. God bless you. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll see you next time. Awesome. I will, I'll clip the video probably at this point, but that's it. Thanks you guys. Man, I just love you. Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Thanks for scrambling and, figuring out how to make it happen. And we can probably run another test on my stuff later on sometime just to find out what's causing the hiccup there.
What do you think?
Yeah, we can sort it out. Y'all can hang out and engage with the comments for a bit if you want to, and I'll hit the ground too until you need to sign off.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Yeah,
definitely.
Also, I'm sure you saw it. Your mic was cutting out a fair amount.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I couldn't do anything about it. It's just
like, we'll come for next time.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. What was the book where the quote from Andy Crouch was about the swarms in creation?
Playing God.
Playing God?
I believe so.
Somebody was suggesting you do a series on the Eucharist. They thought that would
Oh.
be helpful. I thought that was
Oh,
good.
that's
Maybe even the
interesting.
sacraments.
Yeah.
You know, another idea, John, is we could do a series that is the lost episodes or episodes from previous series that you weren't able to do. Just
Yeah.
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 Second thoughts on
Mhm.
on those episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there was just something about, thinking about that poor angel sitting there. There's just something so poignant about whatever it is that is addressing. And I think for all of us, just that deep sense of I'm homesick. Somehow
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
who I'm supposed to be and not where I'm supposed to be. And that kind of never goes.
No, and I was just rereading this morning about how important belonging is in the church. And, this is the fellowship of the withered hand. And it's like, and holding that thought, and then the character traits, when we figure out what ours are and we can see them in other people, we're seeing glimpses of God, not just learning about our own strengths. And even in community, our brokenness is what points other people eventually to God, because even community is not the goal. It's that the goal is to point people back to, is God good?
Yes.
And
No, that's good.
do a bloopers episode. You know what? That would be.
Well, it would be,
hilarious.
except I pretty much just let the bloopers roll.
And that's
I
just
know.
So it's like
you don't really have any bloopers.
the tractor.
Sometimes I'll do a recording and it's like, this just doesn't make sense, or it's
Yeah.
not coming out right, so I'll stop. But if it's just a blooper, I'll just, I pretty much just do one take and keep rolling them.
Yeah.
Several folks said too, at some point, I think we froze up, at least for some people, Tim. So I don't know if there's anything we can
I'll go take a look. Yeah.
think about that.
I'll go back and look at that. One clip that I've never told you about that I got. I'm saving for maybe
This
maybe
is intriguing.
It is.
if we ever close up shop, So if there's ever a day where we're saved this clip that I think was just kind of a mistake by you. So that's a little Easter egg.
Look forward to seeing that one.
It's
Or
really
not. Yeah.
No, you will. It's actually really endearing. I love it. So anyway, but I think everything's endearing. So who knows?
Oh, you're great. I love you.
You are. Thank you, Tim.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
That's it.
Do we call it a day?
Yep. Talk to you later.
All right.